Good evening, and welcome to the Thomas Circle Singers Silent Auction Kickoff event. My name is Erin Feng. I'm the Executive Director, and I'm thrilled to have you all with us here tonight. We have a wide range of items available for bidding this year, including concert tickets, unique experiences, and one-of-a-kind items donated by our talented choir members and generous supporters. From sponsorships to gift certificates, there is something for everyone in our auction. I encourage you all to bid generously and often to support our mission to share the transformative power of choral music with our community. Every bid you make will help us to continue to bring this beautiful music to audiences across the region and to ensure the future of our organization. But tonight is not just about the auction. We are also thrilled to bring you a special Meet the Composer talk with Herb Mahelona. This pre-recorded session between our artistic director, Dr. Miles Canaday, and the composer is a rare opportunity to gain insight into the creative process behind one of the pieces that we will perform in our upcoming concert on March 25th. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this unique opportunity to learn more about the music that we love and the people who create it. And don't forget to place your bids in the silent auction. Your support makes all the difference in the world. Thank you for joining us, and let's make this year's silent auction the best one yet.
Great to see everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. We are, of course, delighted to have Herb Mahelona join us here from Hawaii. And I will give a quick introduction, and then he will begin talking to us about his piece, Kinohi. So welcome, Herb. So Herb Mahelona was born and raised in Honolulu, and as an educator for the last 25 years, he has taught Hawaiian history, art, music appreciation, choir, music history, Korean language, web design, and music composition. He's been the principal cellist and guest conductor of the Kamuela Philharmonic Orchestra. And aside from being a teacher, he's also, of course, a composer and arranger. He's composed several operas in Hawaiian, including a rock opera about the election for monarch in Hawaii in 1874, as well as the oratorio Kinohi, or Genesis, in 2018, which we'll hear more about tonight. He joins us from the Big Island of Hawaii, where he is the high school choir director at the Kamehameha School's Hawaii campus. So please welcome Herb Mahelona.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. I know it's kind of late in the evening for you guys. School just got out here. For reasons that I won't explain, I'm not called on to explain myself a lot as far as music is concerned. So hopefully my remarks will be helpful to you in your performance of Kinohi. The Thomas Circle Singers will be the first ensemble outside of Hawaii to attempt singing more than one movement. That is to perform, so Movement 12. Movement 12 has been making its rounds for about 15, 20 years, but no one's done more than movement number 12. So you guys are going to be the first. So I have some notes prepared. I'm just going to jump right in. And then I think Miles wanted me to give time for questions after. So I want to talk about the origin, and it's going to get kind of personal. Hawaiian things tend to be more personal in nature, and I think it'll help you get a context as to where the piece comes from. So the title of the work is Kinohi, which in Hawaiian means the beginning. It's also the name of the biblical book of Genesis when you translate it into Hawaiian. So the Bible's been in Hawaiian since 1839. So the start of the Bible is Ikinohi, which literally means in the beginning, which is the same pattern as the Hebrew. So I've been composing for about 25 years, usually by request only. So this oratorio is the only work that I wrote that wasn't a commission. It came to me in a fever dream, literal fever dream. I was really sick. I was down with the flu in 1997. So I took a lot of NyQuil in hopes of sleeping it off. And in that drug condition, I dreamt I was watching and hearing the performance of this large a cappella choir singing a Hawaiian oratorio with soloists and Hawaiian instruments. There were drums singing about the creation of the world. So it was really otherworldly and joyous, but it was all in Hawaiian. And up until that point, nothing like that had ever been composed in the Hawaiian language. Nothing on that scale hadn't been done. So when I woke up, I could remember the sounds that I heard, and especially how it made me feel. I felt uplifted, and I couldn't really explain what it was, but it was kind of a joyful feeling. Like I was floating and carried away in the whole narrative of the creation story. So that same year, I was approached by the organizers of the Hawaii All-State Honor Choir to compose an original choir piece. So I decided to try and turn part of my dream into real music that these high schoolers would sing. And so they did it. And that would become the final movement of my, what I call my dream oratorio. So I wrote a movement here and a movement there. As performance opportunities presented themselves for various choral groups, I had about 5 or 6 movements completed. And they've all been performed in Hawaii. But the original oratorio, as you know, is 24 movements. So I had all the sketches out, I knew what scriptures I wanted to use, and I had all the compositional ideas, but I wouldn't finish it until 2015. So like almost 20 years later. So the big question, and it's going to tie into you as an ensemble, is why did it take so long to finish? And why was I, in 2015, in the 21st century, the first Hawaiian composer to compose a major work in Hawaiian? So there's some major questions there. So my official explanation at that time was that no one was interested in hearing a Hawaiian oratorio. And even if there were no choirs up to the task of learning all 24 movements, which is kind of true in both cases. But the story of Kinohi has a lot to do with Hawaiian history and culture, and you are now going to be part of that. And I'll explain how you are now going to be part of Hawaiian history. And you are now adding your chapter to the story of the new cultural beginning for the Hawaiian culture and language. So as you probably know, if you know the history of the United States, Hawaii was a sovereign kingdom that was overthrown by the United States in 1893. The reigning queen was deposed. She was sentenced to house arrest. And then a governing body of Americans kind of took over the kingdom, and it eventually became the 50th state of Hawaii. So while that brought a lot of prosperity and economic stability, culturally, it was a disaster for Hawaiians. Hawaiians no longer had a place in society. The resulting suppression of Hawaiian culture and language has a lot to do with why it took so long to complete this oratorio. So what happens when your culture is taken over by another culture and you suddenly have to speak differently, dress differently, live differently, and think differently if you want to survive? Well, it creates a void inside, and it robs you of your identity, a true sense of self, and it invalidates everything about you, which is suddenly not acceptable, is shameful, or at least not important. So we were not taught, and this is me as a child. So Hawaii became a state in 1959. I was born in 1967, so not too long after. So I was taught in my generation to not value Hawaiian things by my parents and any generation older, because they said there was no value and no benefit. It was, I was told many times, a waste of time. So when in high school, I confided to a teacher that I wanted to become a composer, I was told, and I quote, "Hawaiians don't do that. Just go play your ukulele on the beach with the other Hawaiians. Hawaiians don't play classical music. That's haole music. If you play that music, you are a haole." So haole is the general term we use for white foreigner or any kind of foreigner. And it's not necessarily negative, but in that context, it was definitely negative. So I was called white because I chose to study classical music, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't study to become a composer and call myself a Hawaiian. And unfortunately, this is not unique to Hawaii. It happens whenever a culture is absorbed by another culture and invalidated. It happens throughout human history. It's continuing today. It's just part of who we are. And I think if you go far back enough in all of our roots, somebody went through it. Nobody's been immune to that. So what happened in order to finish the oratorio is that I had to face up to that identity crisis because that is what was holding me back. In the meantime, I was waiting years and years for somebody, some other Hawaiian, to step up and be the first one to write something major in Hawaiian, a choir piece, an oratorio, an opera, and nobody did. So I moved to this island. I'm on the Big Island in 2010, and I started working at Kamehameha Schools. It's a private school for students only of Hawaiian ancestry. So it started back in 1887 by one of the last of the monarchy, and she dedicated all her assets and her estate to making sure that Hawaiians got a decent education and were able to function. So now I'm working with all Hawaiian students, and I had to confront a lot of what is holding the culture back and what was holding me back from completing the oratorio. And I was really shocked to see that the next generation of Hawaiians, the generation after me, is still saddled with the exact same insecurities and self-doubt. Nothing had changed in 30 years. We have Native immersion Hawaiian schools. The hula dance is internationally recognized. Hawaiians finally hold prominent social political positions. We're educators, doctors, lawyers. But the void inside was still there because we're still afraid to embrace that part of us that we thought didn't matter or that we were told didn't matter. So the process of creating self-validation is long and painful because you have to confront a lot of painful and damaging lies that you have told yourself about yourself. So I had to learn to embrace the Hawaiian part of me. So I'm half Hawaiian. My parents are both half. My dad is half Chinese. My mom is half Scottish. And it's kind of rare these days to find a half Hawaiian. So I had to learn to embrace the Hawaiian part of me and the non-Hawaiian parts of me, and to appreciate how that combination helped me to survive. I had learned to rely on my non-Hawaiian blood to keep the Hawaiian part of me alive. So also on this island, I was confronted with nature in all its beauty. I live within 30 miles of 3 active volcanoes, 2 of which recently erupted. I don't know if you saw the news. It made it sound like the island was sinking in lava, but it wasn't. We were driving up and taking pictures of the volcano. And so there's miles and miles of untouched forest and coastline. The oceans are still clean. At night, the sky is really dark because we have observatories up on the mountains, so they keep the lights really low. So even in the town, in the city, you can still see all the stars at night. All the stars are out. And right now there's snow on the mountains. It's really beautiful. So it's time to finish and begin something new. So Kinohi is the beginning in a literal sense. Because this island is so young and still growing, it's still growing itself. There's a creative energy here that is so strong, it's actually difficult not to create here. I don't know if any of you have been here, but you can kind of sense it, especially on this island. The island is alive. So whenever a creative individual moves here, I tell them to expect a creative outpouring like anything they've ever experienced. And so far, I've been correct. If you like to paint, you're going to paint 25 pictures in a week. If you like to write songs, the songs will just come gushing out of you. So what seemed like an unwieldy project at first, 24 movements, was suddenly doable when I moved here. In a couple of months, I finished the remaining movements, and all 24 movements were done, and the book was off to the printer. And it was the beginning of many new and wonderful things. So just this year, I accepted a commission by the Hawaii Opera Theater to compose an original Hawaiian opera, which they're going to produce in a workshop next year and full production in 2026. The first Hawaiian opera in the Hawaiian language written by a Hawaiian composer. And it began literally with Kinohi. So it's literally the beginning. So it's exciting times for Hawaiian culture. And also I'm with my high school students taking a rock opera to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival this August. It's our 3rd time that we've been invited to go. So part of the journey of the oratorio is my journey of feeling validated as a musician and composer. So how do you guys fit into this? Well, I did not learn to value myself as a Hawaiian and as a potential composer until I went to the mainland, which is so ironic. So in high school, we went to Cincinnati. I was playing cello in orchestra, and our teacher took us to Cincinnati to a summer music institute at the University of Cincinnati. And so we're working on Schubert's Great Symphony. I think it's his 9th symphony. And I had already been conditioned to devalue myself as a classical musician at home. So I was shocked when I got to Cincinnati, and I was just as good as the students from the Midwest. But more than that, the students were thrilled that we were from Hawaii. They were just absolutely thrilled. We were celebrities. They wanted to see our ID and our driver's license. They saw nothing wrong with us playing classical music and joining them in the orchestra. Nothing wrong. They didn't call us names. They didn't make fun of us. We were just another part of the orchestra. So they were so welcoming, friendly, encouraging, and humble, and I felt like one of them. And after that, it was difficult to fly home and feel the weight of cultural stigma back on my shoulders. But I learned an important lesson, and this is a lesson that has historically played out for Hawaiians in every facet of our culture, and that is that we have always needed outside perspective and help to make sense of ourselves. Because we live so isolated, we've always needed other people to tell us we're okay. So when you live on small islands, it's easy to lose perspective. Just like for us, it's so easy to forget what month of the year it is because every day is the same. The sun comes up at the same time, the weather's the same. Is this November? Is it March? Is it summer? Is it winter? You just lose track. So historically, foreign input has always been a part of who Hawaiians are. We're an accepting people by nature because we live on small islands. And the land is not big enough for all of us to segregate. There's just not enough room. So we welcome everyone as long as they're willing to understand their role in our society and, not make too much waves. Everybody's aloha to everybody, right? So it was the first missionaries actually who pushed for the creation of a standardized written Hawaiian language. So not Hawaiians, it was American missionaries. They're the ones that translated the Bible into Hawaiian. They're the ones that pushed for newspapers. So at one point, Hawaii was 99% literate. And it's all due to the influence of the missionaries. So sometimes you look at missionary culture and say, boo, you brought disease and everything, but they did a lot of good, at least here. And it was British military men who helped our first King Kamehameha, the king that united all the islands. He's a famous guy. It was British help that helped him defeat all his enemies and unite all the islands into one kingdom, using foreign fighting skills and artillery. So the same can be said of every ethnic group that found itself in the islands. They contributed something to make Hawaiians stronger. In many cases, it was the intermingling of bloodlines that strengthened Hawaiians against the influx of new contagious diseases, which they were physically not prepared for. So Hawaiians just died by droves from smallpox, flu, but not the ones that were mixed blood. We survived. So it can be argued that this culture mixing has diluted the Hawaiianness, and that's a valid argument in this case, but I also believe it has made Hawaiians more resilient. So Christianity is tied into Kinohi because it's a Christian text, it's a biblical text. And we always think of Hawaiians, the white people came and invaded and pushed their culture on Hawaiians. Missionaries came to Hawaii because a Hawaiian boy, his family was killed in constant warfare between the islands. His family was killed. He boarded a sailing vessel and ended up in Connecticut. There he learned English. He was converted by Protestants. He was baptized. And he was the one that lobbied for the first missionaries to come to Hawaii. He said, you have to go and save my people. You have to go. And the missionaries didn't want to go. But because this young Hawaiian boy was begging them to go, they kind of made it happen. So the whole missionary thing was brought about because of Hawaiians. So now we get to the music part. So one of the things the missionaries taught the Hawaiians was love for church music. And I think that's true for all Polynesian peoples that embrace Christianity. We love singing harmonies. So we call it himeni, which is the Hawaiian word for hymn. It's also present in Kinohi, where many of the movements are kind of hymn-like, structured and voicing. And I added kind of a modern twist, but there's a definite affinity for homophony. So you guys are doing movement 12 and 18. So that's why they sound kind of hymn-like. So that's a tribute to the missionaries and to our cultural heritage. So prior to the missionaries teaching hymns to Hawaiian, the main form of musical expression was chanting. So chants are different from the Western idea of songs. Chants serve various functions. They were instructive. You could tell entire stories, genealogies, historical events in chant form because there was no written language. So you had to recite it. So chants were used in religious ceremonies and also in games. And composing a chant was considered an art form. So one bit of trivia that you might find unique with Hawaiian music is that the words in Hawaiian are considered to be the song. It's not the melody. So when we say who wrote the song, we always look who wrote the words. The melody is just an afterthought. So all the music and the poetry is embedded in the words. So it's often confusing when we talk about Hawaiian composers. In the modern sense, in our sense, the composer is the one who decided which notes would correspond to each word. In the traditional Hawaiian sense, the composer is the one who created the poetry. And there are specific skills and techniques that talented Hawaiian composers employ. So chants were sometimes performed all in unison and sometimes not. So in the oratorio, sometimes there's chanting that's all in unison. And I think in 18, it's the same chant, just started at different times. So sometimes they start on the same pitch, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you just pick your own pitch and just go. So you got 15 conflicting pitches. Sometimes they did it with drums, sometimes they didn't. So just so you know, Hawaiians have their own creation chant. It's called the Kumulipo, and it's about 300 years old. So one of the ruling chiefs had it created to validate his connection to the gods. So this creation chant starts with amoebas and the universe and ends up with this chief. So kind of a royal lineage thing. But in music, so what I did was I tried to incorporate music styles from both, from the Kumulipo and from chants and from church choral music. So Hawaiian language, Hawaiian has what one of my linguistics professors called sound poverty. So very few sounds are available. There's only 5 vowels and there's only 7 consonants and a glottal stop. That's all you have to express all your feelings, describe everything you see and experience. So Hawaiians got very creative. So one word means many, many, many different things. If you look up in a Hawaiian dictionary, Mau, the entries are paragraphs. So sometimes they're vocabulary words, sometimes they're grammatical functions. So everything means something else in Hawaiian. And we Hawaiians have a lot of fun with that. So you can be talking about how cold the rain is, but you really mean that you love someone. I mean, there's so much play with the language. So that brings us to unique features of Hawaiian music, which will help explain what your role is in this story. So I've lived my entire life in Hawaii. I've written all types of music, choir pieces, operas, and never once has anyone asked me how fast a piece should go. What is the tempo? Miles was the first one to contact me and say, how fast does this go? You don't have any tempo markings, how fast? And there's a reason for that. So Hawaiian culture is an orally transmitted culture prior to the missionaries converting the language to a written one. So one of the main characteristics of an orally transmitted culture is the concept of ownership. Once someone has told you a story or shared cultural information or family history, they've given you a gift, and like a gift, you can do with it what you will. And it is expected that you will treat that gift with respect. So it's also expected that the gift will transform itself to represent the personality of its new owner, and that the new owner will leave their indelible mark on the piece. This is true of all forms of Hawaiian music. Chant, modern composed songs, choir music, and kinohi is the same. It is expected that the music will undergo a transformation. It will be reinterpreted in a way that can only be done by the new performer. So if you think it's like a game of telephone that's been going on for 4 or 5 generations. So many ancient chants that have been passed down just in the past 200 years have undergone radical changes. And in some cases, we can't even tell what the original chant was about, but we know what our chant, our version of it is about. So even in the structure of Kinohi, I added my own voice in there. So the work is organized as this biblical creation narrative interspersed with responses. So all the responses are my chosen responses to express how I felt about each step in the universe coming into being. So you guys are doing 1 and 18 are part of the creation narrative. They're exactly what happened in the Bible. God made this, this happened, this happened. So movements 8, 12, 17, or 20 are responses. Basically, it's my personal response, and I used scriptures to express how I felt. So now it falls to you, Miles and Thomas Circle singers, to make the movements of Kinohi that you have chosen to perform indelibly yours, whatever that may mean to you individually and collectively. There are only a few tempo markings in Kinohi for this very reason. You get to decide how fast or slow to sing. You get to make the music your own. I can give you some ideas, but my Hawaiianness prevents me from dictating any specifics to you or to your director. So this is a very different concept from the one where we faithfully recreate the composer's wishes based on the tempo markings and the dynamics. Beethoven is a prime example. You do it exactly to the letter. So Kinohi represents cultural crossroads between Western and Hawaiian cultures, between traditional and modern compositional styles, between religious traditions, and now between Hawaii and Washington, D.C.
Hi everyone, I'm Miles Canaday, Artistic Director of Thomas Circle Singers. Thanks for watching our session with Herb Mahelona. And Herb, thank you so much for sharing your time and your very personal history with this piece. We can't wait to perform it. We hope you'll join us on Saturday, March 25th at 5 p.m. for our concert, featuring Bernstein's Chichester Psalms and selections, of course, from Herb Mahelona's Kinohi, the first Hawaiian language oratorio. Works by Benjamin Britten, Gwyneth Walker, Sergei Rachmaninoff, and Bobby McFerrin will complete the evening's program. Tickets are available on our website, thomascirclesingers.org. We hope to see you there.
Thank you all for joining us tonight for the TCS Virtual Silent Auction Kickoff event. It's been a pleasure to share this evening with you, and we appreciate your support. We are so grateful for our choir members and supporters who donated items for our auction this year, and for those of you who have already participated by placing bids. Your generosity helps us continue our mission to share the transformative power of choral music with our community. We hope you enjoyed this Meet the Composer talk with Herb Mahelona and gained insight into the creative process behind the pieces that we'll be performing on our upcoming concert, March 25th. We're excited to bring this music to life and to share it with you all. Finally, I want to remind you that the auction is still open and will continue until March 23rd. Please continue to bid and spread the word to your friends and family to help us reach our fundraising goals this year. Thank you again for your support, and we look forward to seeing your bids and seeing you all at the upcoming concert, March 25th at Church of the Epiphany.